right, welcome back to Toon Boom Training. For this episode, I'm going to use some materials from the Toon Boom Training website. We're going to look at the library real quick so that you can import things from other files. And then we're going to import some images, make a color palette, and learn how to color frames of animation. So first of all, let's go to the library tab over here on the right hand side. Now this looks a little scary. I'm going to walk you through it. So we have over here some folders that we can access. And then once we open up a library and put it in here, we will use the right side of this window to access the files. So first of all, I'm going to right click in here and say Open Library. And then you should have had a mo-htrial-002-prm download attached to the assignment. So let's go ahead and make sure we're inside of this folder. So if it's on the desktop, you will go to that folder. So navigate into the inside of the folder. You don't have to open anything in here. You just go to the folder that you want to be in and then say open. So when I do that, this shows up over here in my library and it has a lock on it. So in order to access what's in here, you have to right click on it and say write to modify. And now you should be able to get inside of here. So we have a few things going on. We have a seagull.png. We have a whole bunch of other things. You're going to end up using this Seagull clean, and we will get to that in the next little bit here. Okay, so we need to import our backgrounds, and we need to import our reference image that we need to use to make our palette for coloring our animation. So let's come here to, well, we don't want to open. We want to say File, Import, Images. We're going to browse. So inside that folder we have seagull.png. So let's go ahead and import that guy. We will shrink it here in a moment. And then I want to go to the Photoshop file that you were able to download as part of this assignment. I'm going to go to Import Images again. And I have it somewhere else, so let me look for it. In Materials, Files, Learn.bag. Okay. Keep as original bitmap. We're going to fit the alignment. We're going to keep the alpha straight. We're going to import as individual layers. All right, so we have our background in here. One thing we're going to do with this, we need to rearrange some stuff a little bit. My drawing layer is, well, drawing layers, because we got a lot of stuff going on here. They are already in groups, but I'm going to group this one more time. I'm going to right click on, make sure all these are selected. I'm going to right click on those groups and I'm going to say group selection. I'm going to double click on that group name and I'm just going to call it BG-G for group. So background-group. I'm going to put a peg on it. So we've used pegs in the past to move entire groups of things without causing a problem with the drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and add a peg. Make sure I have selected that peg layer. I'm going to grab my transform tool and then I'm going to scale this up holding shift to fit the screen. All right, so now we have our background. Seagull is stuck behind here, so I'm going to grab him and put it on top. And we need to scale him down. Hold shift. Well, don't do that. Grab the corner, hold shift, and we're going to scale down a little bit. We're not going to use this for animation. We are using the Seagull to create a color palette. So the next step is we're going to have an animation that we're going to bring in here that we are going to need to color. So I need a palette for that. So over here in the color tab, we have the palette section and then we have the swatches section. Click the plus sign on the palette section and you can create a new palette. We're going to call it Seagull. And the palette type will be color, spelled O-U-R. Okay, so now we see this new palette and it's blank. There's nothing in here. We just have a color that says default. So we need to add some swatches here. So I'm going to add one at a time and then do the sample of the color as we go. So I'm going to add a new swatch. It's going to say new 0. I'm going to call this one body -F for fill. So I'm going to double click on that square to bring up my color picker. I'm going to grab, well, I need to drag the dropper over to, you have to drag. You can't just click and pull. You have to click and drag to my Seagull body and let go. And now I have that color sampled. Okay, I'm going to add another color. We're going to call this one wings-F, and that's for, the F stands for fill, because we're going to need to grab the lines as well here in a minute. Double click that, grab my eyedropper, sample the wings. Okay, we got our next color. I'm going to call this next one wingtip, wing and tail, wingtips -F. Grab that, and then we're going to get that darker color that are on the end of the wings and the tail. So wingtips.F. Let's do the beak. We're going to do beak. So same process. You can fast forward through this part if you don't want to watch every single sampling. Let's do eye. Pupil. Pupil. Pupil.F-F. Okay, so we're going to grab that, sample that black. Eye pupil, eye highlight, -F, because it is white, but you do still want to sample that. So get that highlight. Okay, and we already did beak. Let's do eyebrow, because he's got a fun little eyebrow. I don't know if it's the same color. It might be, but it might not be. All right, we're gonna do feet. And we'll grab the little feet. Got this nice orange. Okay, so we have all the fills, but we also need to do lines if we want to color the lines. But let's go ahead and grab them for the palette anyway. I'm gonna add a new color. We're gonna call it body-L for line. Okay, and I can move it up here. You can arrange these however you want. It doesn't have to be in the order that it comes in. You can grab and pull them around. So let's do the body, and I'm gonna very carefully, and you can zoom in if you need to, very carefully grab the line. So body-L. Okay, let's do, add it right there. We're gonna do wings-L. And we're gonna move it up to where wings-F is. Wings-L, so we know the difference. Again, you can very carefully pick it or zoom in and grab it that way. Oops, we don't want to do that. Right, wing tips-L. Move it up where wingtips is. I just want to keep everybody together. Let me zoom back in here. Grab that. There we go, wingtips. Oops. Okay, we're gonna add the beak-L. Beak-L. Grab it. Okay, and then we need the feet. The eye's good to go. We need the feet. Okay. Plus, we're gonna do feet-L. Grab that darker orange. Okay. So now we have a fully stocked color palette of our Seagull character. We can go ahead and hide this reference. We're going to bring in a blank animation courtesy of Toon Boom. So over here in my library, I'm going to find this ADV PRM-02 Seagull clean.tpl. And I'm going to drag it onto the camera canvas. Or I'm not. Well, no, a few frames and then it comes in. Okay. So yeah, don't worry. Those few frames are supposed to be like that because then he flies in and lands. It's very, very cute. All right. So I have my Seagull animation, courtesy of the Toon Boom tutorials. And we're going to start to color this guy. So I'm going to come into, I don't know, this frame that looks a little bit like our reference. And I'm going to grab all these lines with the select tool. Okay. So we want to do something kind of different. We want to copy all this line art over into what's called the color layer. So that way we separate our lines from our colors. Right now we are in, so if you look here where this eyeball is, and we can see everything right now, we are in this layer called L. So that's where the lines are supposed to go. We need to copy these vector paths over into the color zone so that we can do all the fills for this guy. Okay, so we have it selected. Now I don't want to do this for every single frame. That would be ridiculous and tedious. We're going to do this all at one time. So make sure you have all of your lines selected. And over here in the tool properties of the selection tool, you are going to click this button called Apply to All Frames. Okay, it says in all red, Apply to All Frames. That tells you that that's what you're about to do. Now, we're going to copy all these lines over into the color layer. So come here to the selection operations. You'll see this curve with arrows pointing to a blue curve. Hover over it. It says Create Color Art from Line Art. So I'm going to click this. It's going to look like nothing happened, but I promise you something did happen. So I'm going to click it. Okay. It looks like it did something, right? So if I come over here to the color layer, and I'm going to click off the selection, I now have these blue strokes that are part of the color. So line art, and then we have our colors. Okay, you can kind of distinguish what layer you're on. The line art won't have those blue lines, whereas the color line does. You can actually, or color layer does, so you can actually see. So we still have Apply to All Frames turned on. So let's start filling in our guy, our little seagull, with the fills. We don't have to do the lines right now. If you want to do the lines later, we can. So let's do body-F. I'm going to get my paint bucket and I'm going to drop in the color.F. Okay, something is not right here because we need to close a gap. There is a gap. Something is happening because it's not coloring him. There's a gap right here. Okay, that's a problem. But we can take care of that. If you come over here to the paint bucket properties, we can say close large gap and then it will just ignore that. Or it should just ignore that. It is not ignoring that. So we're going to have to actually close that gap. So I'm going to come over here to close gap. We're going to close the gap and hopefully that takes across all of our frames. So after we've closed that gap up there, go back to your paint bucket so that you can fill in this body-F. And so real quick, before we move on, let's scrub through our frames, and you'll see, not all of them, but some of our frames have that color placed there. Okay, so you may have to come in and close the gap in a couple of other frames. So that gap is still there. You want to make sure that you have closed gaps. That is a very important thing. Close those gaps. Because sometimes it doesn't want to ignore them. Sometimes it's going to be a jerk about it. We can use the period and the comma to go back and forth between frames, so we don't have to sit there looking silly. Zooming out and zooming in, we already know where we're going here. Okay, let's go backward one. Let's go back to the fill bucket. Okay, and it actually grabbed the rest of those because we closed all those gaps. Okay, so let's come back to this frame. Let's go ahead and do the beak. Make sure we're in paint bucket. We're going to do the beak. Let's do the feet. Hopefully we don't find any gaps there. Oh, we missed a body L part. That's no body, not L, body F. Body F. Okay, let's do wings. Fill. Wings. And let's do wing tips. Okay, so hopefully we have no other problems. Don't forget the eye highlight. And we need to change the eyebrow too. Whoops. That's going to be a line, so let's grab the ink tool. We'll change the eyebrow. Hello. Or maybe it just doesn't want to cooperate with us for that. Okay, don't worry about it. So now that we've painted one frame, we need to go through and see how it did with the other frames, because it may not have done very good. Okay, we have a problem, right? So we need to do that body fill, make sure that that's correct. And again, you can navigate with the plus and the comma, or not plus, the period and the comma. Okay, that's supposed to be filled. Sometimes when you go through and put the correct color, it will figure out, oh, that's what it was supposed to be, and it will correct itself. But not always. Let's get those wings fill. But honestly, this is so much quicker than it would normally be. Honestly, if you're gonna sit there and just paint, we're just dropping colors in here. We're just dropping them in like it's nothing. So body. Okay, so you gotta watch our other problems here. This is wingtips, and then we need the wings. Oh, we have a gap. Nope, we don't have a gap problem. Let's see, that's body for the little tuft right there. Oh, we got some problems down here. But again, sometimes when you fix a problem on a frame, it'll be like, oh, and it will fix the rest of them. Oops, see, there's some wings that I didn't get. So let's get those wings fill. Okay. So you're going to have to go through and just drop in colors or delete areas that it does on accident. Or if you're just like, man, I hate this, you can actually just turn off apply to all frames. And you can continue on with the colors to finish a colored animation. So when it is finished, should look like this. Okay, let's go back to the line layer. It should look like this when it's finished. Okay. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of the pitfalls, possible issues when you're going through and completing your line art for your animations. Again, you want to make sure all the gaps are closed. You want to make sure you have all your palettes ready to go. What's cool about the palettes is you can actually have somebody in your group make your palettes, and you can actually export them or share them. Okay, or link them even. So you can say, maybe link it to other files, other folders. We can go over here to the sandwich menu in the color, say palettes, and you can say link to external or new palette from select. Hold on. You should, well, actually, you can import a palette from another file. So if you have somebody, you can just do like the assets file, and you can import, sorry, I gotta adjust here. You can import palettes from other animations. That way, if you have multiple shots with the same character, you can share the same palettes. All right, thank you. Thank you. That is it for today.